Do you think attribution is something that's critical and really deep? You need to know it all? Or if you have good enough data, then attribution becomes secondary?
Well, you're never going to know it all. I mean, I think it's for most of us that are running complex buying journeys. I mean, if you're doing a transactional type sale, maybe sort of cause and effect, you can figure that out. But for most of the rest of us in B2B that are selling across multiple members of a buying committee in a buying process that takes a long time and it's across multiple channels, we have to, I mean, this may not be popular, but you have to stop chasing full attribution. I just don't see that we're ever going to have that full picture. Now, can you understand which channels are more effective than others? Yes. Can you understand where marketing may have influenced something based on content you can track? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you want to sort of create those breadcrumb trails to understand what's going on. But unfortunately, I see a lot of companies that chase the perfect report without improving their execution. I mean, great reports are just going to show shitty campaigns if that's still what you're doing. But great campaigns will perform whether or not you're measuring it or not.
Exactly. So overall, you're going to get better benefit. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I see the attribution discussion happening at not actually the right table. It's not the RevOps and the marketing and the sales working on it together, saying, what did we do that worked well in these 25 things that influenced this deal? But rather it's about, marketing wants more money. But wait, prove to me that you're working. Prove to me that your brand campaign has worked. What are your thoughts around that?
I get that people want clarity, and I get that companies want this to be more transparent and more simple, but let's face it, like, it's messy. Marketing is messy. I just got off a call that you were on. We were talking about customer advocacy with a bunch of CMOs. And, when we asked the question about measurement, you start talking about, well, here's how many advocates we're managing and here's how many likes I got on this. We start going back to tactics again that aren't metrics you can buy a beer with, because that translation is difficult to see. And just because you can't measure it doesn't mean it's not valuable. And I could actually argue, and I heard this, I'm totally blanking on the name of someone who told me this a couple of years ago. And it's true. I mean, the more important the metric, the more difficult it is to measure. Like, the easy things you can measure tend to be the least important things, like clicks and likes and retweets and impressions. So there's a level of complexity there that some people either both aren't willing to lean in on, as well as they over prioritizing finding a solution for.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I mean, just telling you, hey, here's how many visitors, or a blog got this many people doing things. That's a secondary metric. Why don't we start with the bottom line and how we're doing as a company, and then what's working? Yeah, I understand that. Well, a lot of times we talk about who owns the data, and that's always an interesting scope of it. So what is RevOps to you? What do you think RevOps' role should be to the CMO, the CRO, and even the CFO? And who owns the data, or the single view of the data in the company, you think, in B2B?
Well, if you're pursuing a single view of the data, then there isn't inherently sort of a primary owner. Like, it's the company owns the data. And if you're looking at it between sales, marketing, customer success, finance, it's a collective ownership. I mean, so there isn't really, I don't know if this is the communist answer, but I'm not worried about which department owns it. I'm worried about making sure that there's consistency and value in that data across systems. Now, there are plenty of marketing teams that have increasingly taken over ownership of revenue operations, right? And said, listen, we're marketing, we're the voice of the customer. The data is about the customer, and therefore we are going to help manage that. I see the best places for RevOps to live are either within marketing or sometimes within finance, right? To have RevOps report up to the CFO to make sure that data is optimized can be useful. If it's owned in sales, it's just not a function sales should be distracted with. If it's owned in IT, unfortunately, it tends not to follow business rules and tends to be more about the reports and more about the data and less about what the data is doing. So I think revenue ops in marketing, revenue ops in finance tend to be two of the best organizational solutions.